In a quiet, dust-mottled workshop, nestled on a cobblestone street in a town where time seemed to move a little slower, lived an old carpenter named Geppetto. His hands, gnarled and strong from years of shaping wood, often lay idle in the evenings, resting on the worn workbench. The workshop, usually filled with the cheerful rasp of saws and the rhythmic tap of hammers, grew silent as dusk settled, echoing only Geppetto's soft sighs. He was a kind man, with eyes that held a gentle sadness and a heart that yearned for a companion, a son to share his simple life with. He had no family, and the quiet hum of the crickets outside often felt like the only conversation he had. One particularly lonely night, as the moon cast long, silver shadows through his window, Geppetto picked up a piece of pine wood. It was an exquisite piece, smooth and fragrant, almost as if it held a secret warmth within its grain. With a renewed sense of purpose, he began to carve. He worked through the night, his tools dancing with a delicate precision, shaping a small figure. He carved a round, innocent face, with wide, curious eyes that seemed to gaze at him even before they were painted. He fashioned a small, button nose, a cheerful smile, and a sturdy, jointed body. As dawn approached, a little wooden puppet stood before him, perfect in every detail. Pinocchio, he whispered, a name that felt just right, a name full of playful mischief and boundless potential. "Oh, how I wish you were a real boy," he sighed, his heart swelling with a love he hadn't known he possessed. He tucked the puppet into a tiny bed he had made, his own wish a silent prayer carried on the morning breeze. That very night, as Geppetto slept soundly, dreaming of a son, a soft, ethereal glow filled the workshop. A beautiful blue fairy, her gown shimmering like starlight and her voice like the gentle chime of bells, appeared beside Pinocchio's bed. She smiled down at the wooden figure. "Good Geppetto has wished for a son with all his heart," she murmured, her wand tracing a delicate arc in the air. A shower of golden dust descended upon Pinocchio. His joints stiffened, then loosened, a faint warmth spreading through his wooden limbs. His painted eyes blinked open, filled with a sudden, wondrous spark of life. He wiggled his fingers, then his toes, a gasp escaping his wooden lips. I can move," he exclaimed, his voice a tiny, reedy sound. "Yes, Pinocchio," the blue fairy said, her smile widening. "You are alive. But to become a real boy, a boy of flesh and blood, you must prove yourself brave, truthful, and unselfish." She explained the magic of his nose, how it would grow with every lie, a visible reminder of his untruths. Pinocchio, overwhelmed with joy and wonder, promised to be good. The next morning, Geppetto awoke to the most astonishing sight. Pinocchio, sitting up in bed, waving his wooden hands and calling out, "Father! Good morning, Father!" Geppetto's heart soared. He embraced his new son, tears of happiness streaming down his weathered cheeks. The workshop, once so quiet, was now filled with laughter and the clumsy, joyful sounds of Pinocchio learning to walk, to speak, to be. Geppetto, with infinite patience, taught him everything, from tying his wooden shoes to the names of the stars. Pinocchio, though still a puppet, felt a deep, burgeoning love for his kind father, a love that was as real as any human emotion. Life with Pinocchio was a dream come true for Geppetto, but he knew his son needed more than just a loving home. He needed an education. "You must go to school, my dear Pinocchio," Geppetto explained, his eyes shining with hope. "There you will learn to read and write and become wise." Pinocchio, eager to please his father, readily agreed. But Geppetto was poor, and school books cost money. With a heavy heart but a determined spirit, Geppetto sold his only good coat, the one he wore on Sundays, to buy Pinocchio a primer. "Now you have a book, my son," he said, handing it over with a proud smile, "and you can go to school." Pinocchio clutched the book, feeling a surge of responsibility and gratitude. He promised himself he would be the best student for his father. On his way to school the next morning, Pinocchio, his new primer tucked under his arm, was filled with a sense of purpose. The sun was bright, the birds sang, and the world seemed full of promise. But his path soon crossed with two shady characters, a sly fox with a perpetually cunning grin, and a sleek, deceitful cat whose eyes gleamed with mischief. "Well, well, what have we here?" purred the fox, blocking Pinocchio's path. "A little wooden boy off to school? How dreadfully dull." The cat nodded in agreement, licking its paws. They painted a vivid picture of a grand puppet show, a place of endless fun and excitement, where puppets danced and sang without the burden of lessons. Pinocchio, still so new to the world, was easily swayed. The thought of sitting in a stuffy classroom suddenly seemed far less appealing than the dazzling lights and music of a theater. He hesitated, his wooden head tilting from side to side. "But I promised my father," he stammered, a tiny pang of guilt stirring within him. "Nonsense," scoffed the fox. "A little fun never hurt anyone. You can go to school tomorrow. Today, you shall be a star." Pinocchio, his curiosity outweighing his conscience, allowed himself to be led astray. He told himself it was just for a little while, just one day. He knew, deep down, that he was making a mistake, but the allure of immediate gratification was too strong. When they asked him if he was going to school, he blurted out, "Oh yes, of course. I'm going straight to school." And with that lie, his nose began to grow, a tiny, almost imperceptible lengthening at first, then a more noticeable protrusion. He touched it, startled, but the fox and cat merely laughed, distracting him with more promises of glory. They led him to the grand puppet theater, a riot of colors and boisterous music. Pinocchio, swept up in the excitement, forgot all about his growing nose, his father, and his promise. Inside the theater, Pinocchio was indeed a sensation. The other puppets, captivated by his lively movements, cheered him on, but the joy was short-lived. The greedy puppet master, Stromboli, saw only a valuable new attraction. He seized Pinocchio, locking him in a cage, intending to exploit him for his own gain. Pinocchio cried out for his father, for the first time truly understanding the depth of his foolishness. His nose, which had shrunk back to normal after he admitted his lie to the blue fairy who appeared to him in the cage, began to grow again as he tried to concoct an escape plan involving more untruths. The blue fairy, seeing his genuine remorse, freed him, but not without a stern warning. "Remember, Pinocchio, lies only lead to more trouble. Be brave, be truthful, and follow your conscience." Freed from Stromboli, Pinocchio, now truly repentant, resolved to go straight home to Geppetto. But the fox and cat, ever lurking, reappeared. They spun a new tale, a magical field of miracles where coins planted in the ground would grow into trees laden with gold. Pinocchio, still naive and easily tempted by the promise of quick riches for his father, fell for their trick once more. He buried his few coins, believing their lies, only to return later and find nothing but empty earth. He was robbed, humiliated, and left alone. His heart ached with regret, not just for the lost money, but for the pain he knew he was causing his father. His journey home was fraught with peril. He encountered various unsavory characters and found himself in one predicament after another, each time learning a harsh lesson about the consequences of his choices. He was almost hanged by bandits, the fox and cat in disguise, and then, in his desperation, he stumbled upon the land of toys. This was a place of pure, unadulterated pleasure, where children could play all day, eat sweets, and never go to school. Pinocchio, tired of his troubles and longing for simple happiness, succumbed to the temptation. He spent days, then weeks, reveling in the endless games and treats, forgetting his father, his promises, and his quest to become a real boy. He laughed, he played, he indulged in every whim. The days blurred into a haze of carefree abandon. But the land of toys held a terrible secret. Slowly, subtly, The children who stayed too long began to change. First, their ears grew long and furry. Then their voices turned into a braying sound. Pinocchio, one morning, woke up to find himself sprouting donkey ears and a tail. He looked around in horror at his friends, now fully transformed into donkeys, being rounded up by cruel men to be sold to circuses and farms. He tried to run, to hide, but it was too late. He, too, was becoming a donkey. His heart pounded with terror and a profound sense of despair. He had thrown away his chance at being a real boy, and now he was losing even his puppet form. He had betrayed Geppetto's love, and for what? A few weeks of fleeting pleasure. His braying cries were filled with a raw, agonizing regret. He was sold to a circus, forced to perform humiliating tricks, his wooden body now burdened with the heavy, clumsy form of a donkey. One day, during a performance, Pinocchio stumbled and fell, injuring himself badly. The circus master, seeing him as useless, decided to drown him in the sea to skin him for his hide. As Pinocchio was thrown into the churning waves, a miracle occurred. The salt water, combined with the blue fairy's lingering magic, began to reverse the transformation. His donkey skin peeled away, revealing his wooden puppet form beneath. He swam desperately, his wooden limbs aching, his mind fixed on one thought: Geppetto. He had to find his father. He had to make amends. He knew now, with a certainty that pierced his wooden heart, that nothing mattered more than his father's love and forgiveness. He swam for what felt like an eternity, battling the relentless waves, his strength waning. He called out Geppetto's name, his voice hoarse and weak. Just as he felt himself sinking, a colossal shadow loomed over him. It was a monstrous whale, its mouth a cavernous abyss. Before he could react, Pinocchio was swallowed whole, plunged into an inky blackness. The roar of the whale, stomach echoing around him. Despair threatened to consume him. He was lost, truly lost, in the belly of a beast. He stumbled through the darkness, calling out, his voice trembling, "Father, is anyone here?" And then, a faint light, a flickering candle in the distance. He stumbled towards it, his heart pounding with a desperate hope. There, amidst the wreckage of a small boat, sat Geppetto, looking frail and weary, his face etched with sorrow. He had been swallowed by the whale while searching for Pinocchio, his love for his son driving him across the treacherous seas. "Father!" Pinocchio cried, his voice choked with emotion. Geppetto looked up, his eyes widening in disbelief, then filling with tears of overwhelming joy. "Pinocchio, my son, you're alive." They embraced, a wooden puppet and an old man, in the dark, damp belly of a whale. Their reunion, a beacon of love in the most unlikely of places. Pinocchio poured out his heart, confessing all his mistakes, his lies, his foolishness, his deep, profound regret. Geppetto, his own eyes brimming, listened patiently, his hand gently stroking Pinocchio's wooden head. "My dear son," he whispered, "all that matters is that you are here, and that you have learned." But their ordeal was far from over. Geppetto was weak, and the air inside the whale was stifling. Pinocchio, no longer the naive, selfish puppet, knew he had to save his father. He looked around, his mind racing. He noticed the whale was sleeping, its breathing a slow, rhythmic rumble. "Father," he said, his voice firm with newfound resolve, "we must escape. We will tickle the whale's uvula. It will sneeze us out." Geppetto, though skeptical, trusted his son. Pinocchio, with incredible bravery, began to climb, using the debris of the boat as footholds, his wooden body surprisingly agile. He reached the massive uvula, and with all his might, began to tickle it. A frantic, determined effort. The whale stirred, a low rumble building in its throat. Then, with a mighty, explosive sneeze, it expelled them both, sending them hurtling out into the open sea. They landed in the churning waves, exhausted but free. Pinocchio, seeing his father's weakness, knew what he had to do. He carefully helped Geppetto onto his back, his small wooden frame straining under the weight. "Hold on tight, father," he grunted. "I will swim us to shore." He swam with every ounce of his strength, battling the waves, his wooden limbs burning with effort. He thought of all his past mistakes, of the pain he had caused, and those thoughts fueled his determination. He would not fail his father again. Hours passed, the sun rising higher in the sky, beating down on them. Pinocchio's strength was almost gone, but he kept going, one stroke after another, his eyes fixed on the distant shoreline. Finally, with a last, desperate surge, he dragged himself and his father onto the sandy beach. He lay there, utterly spent, Geppetto beside him, both safe at last. Pinocchio closed his eyes, feeling the warmth of the sun, the soft sand beneath him. He had faced his fears, overcome his selfishness, and saved his father. He had been brave, truthful in his confession, and utterly unselfish in his actions. As he drifted into a peaceful sleep, a soft, familiar glow enveloped him. The blue fairy appeared once more, her eyes filled with pride. "Pinocchio," she whispered, "you have proven yourself worthy. You have shown courage, honesty, and a heart full of love." A gentle wave of her wand, and Pinocchio felt a wondrous transformation. His wooden skin softened, his joints became supple, his painted features warmed with the flush of life. He awoke to the gentle touch of Geppetto's hand. He blinked and looked down at his own hands. They were no longer wooden, but soft, warm, and human. He felt the blood coursing through his veins, the warmth of his own breath. He was a real boy. Geppetto, tears of joy streaming down his face, embraced him tightly. "My son," he sobbed, "my real, true son." Pinocchio, his heart overflowing with a love that felt boundless, hugged his father back, his own tears mingling with Geppetto's. The little wooden puppet was gone, replaced by a boy who had learned the most important lessons of all: the value of truth, the power of courage, and the immeasurable strength of a loving heart. They walked home, hand in hand, the sun setting behind them, casting a golden glow on their new beginning, a testament to the enduring magic of love and redemption.